Murphy, and I understand you're sharing your time with Deputy Fleming. So is that agreed?
Yep. Thank you. I think we're here today, almost a year. I think it's this time next week. It'll be 12 months when the legislation was rammed through. And what we've had is a year of confusion and anger, a year of one scandal after the other in relation to Irish Water. And it's fundamentally about one thing. It's about old politics. A government using a huge majority to dismiss dissenting voices. And there's been a huge arrogance about that. A government taking citizens for granted. There's been cronyism, and ultimately there's been a super quango that is essentially going to be paid for by the citizens. We're back here because everything about the Irish Water fiasco has been that it's been flawed from the outset. I've said it several times and I'll say it again. Irish people don't like being taken for fools. They were told that the Bord Gáis partnership was designed to save money, and that they watched as the Minister eventually disclosed that he knew that the costs were going to be, as they were, a very sizable amount of money, 90 million, with some of the usual suspects in the list of the consultants. They knew that they were being turned from citizens into customers, and they resented that. And for many, it has been and is the straw that will break the camel's back. If there's one thing that Irish people know about and they've learned about over the last 5 or 6 years, it's about debt. And they know that if they allow themselves to become customers, they'll be responsible for repaying all the debt incurred in setting up the quango, but also all of the money that the quango will borrow into the future. This has been mired in controversy from the outset, and if you hope that this bill was going to dismiss that controversy, then you're mistaken. You cannot keep dismissing the controversies. All those controversies have had, have not only undermined the confidence people have in Irish Water, they have eroded confidence in this government. But there are more controversies that are yet to come to the fore, and one of those is the circumstances around the awarding of the metering contract. There are major concerns on this issue, and understandably so. Firstly, there is absolutely a question to be answered as to why the cheaper installation offered by Siemens was dismissed. We must have an answer to that question. We absolutely must have an answer to that question. Why did the government choose to accept the more expensive option that required us to borrow from the Pension Reserve Fund with massive interest costs? Next, we have to get answers to the questions regarding the awarding of the contract. There is a key date here. It's June 2013. In a PQ reply on June the 12th, 2013, Minister Hogan confirmed that the end of June 2013 would be the closing date for bidders to apply to be considered for the metering contract. GMC Sierra company registration number 530230 was one of the successful bidders. GMC Sierra was awarded a metering contract, but, and this is the key, the same company registration number 530230 did not come into existence legally until the 15th of July 2013, 15 days after the closing date for bids. How is it that an entity that did not exist when the deadline closed was awarded a contract, GMC Sierra, a company Dennis O'Brien is a vested party in, was somehow awarded a contract before it even existed? Even to tender for a contract requires, under both EU law and Irish law, a certificate of tax compliance. How could an entity that did not exist in law get a tax clearance certificate? These are questions that need answering. They will not go away, and they're being routinely spoken about in social and online media, most notably in broadsheet.ie. What really sits uneasy with people is the broader debt burden, and in particular the Anglo debt that was placed on people's shoulders. That same debt burden that underpins all the austerity measures, including Irish Water. They watched helplessly as Anglo debt was turned into sovereign debt. It placed a noose around the necks for decades to come. 500 million this year will be extinguished, and next year and the year after up to 2018, extinguished. 2019 to 23, 1,000 million will be extinguished. And from 2024 on, 2 billion a year will be extinguished, just taken out of circulation, destroyed. Now, in that context, imagine the anger that comes from seeing a company called Millington, another company owned by Denis O'Brien, a company established to buy SiteServe, a company who owed Anglo 150 million, being sold to Denis O'Brien's Millington by Anglo for just 45 million. A discount of 105 million, essentially 105 million lost to the state. And interestingly, the 45 million paid for SiteServe was reported as the lowest bid for the company, yet it was accepted. I want to hear answers to those, because they won't go away. They're being talked about repeatedly online, on social media, on the like of Twitter. It should be noted that Sierra is a subsidiary of the aforementioned SiteServe. It gets murkier. There are suggestions that, contrary to best practice models, the legal firm Arthur Cox acted for the seller Anglo and the purchaser Millington during this transaction. If this is the case, then there is another question that really deserves, and not only deserves, but needs an answer. The Taoiseach keeps on telling us that all of this is more than about Irish water, and he's absolutely right. It's about people power. It's about people demanding what they demanded before the last general election. It's about people demanding a different type of politics, a reformed politics. It's about people are realising that we should not have been exposed to the debt burden that was placed on our shoulders, where 43% of the entire European banking debt was absorbed by one country with 1% of the population of the European Union. People wanted and expected this government to respect the economic limits of households. They expected this government to spend wisely. The last thing they expected was a huge inflated quango. On the 10th of December, it'll be an incredibly important date. And I was on the march in the middle of October. And I've got to say, it is the highlight of my year, because I felt for the first time that sense of solidarity that we've needed to see since the crash happened, since before this government came into being, where we act as a people and as a parliament in unison. And I think the 100,000 people took to the streets, kept on saying things as we were walking along. Why haven't we done this before? And indeed, I remember going to see, the first time we went to see the Troika as a group from the technical group, they told us, we think everything is all right here. Nobody's out protesting. The opinion polls are looking different. Well, the Troika are gone. And it is a very different scenario. And protest does matter. And we've certainly seen in relation to Irish water that protest has been the fundamental difference as to why we're here today. You have been forced to listen to the people. And one of the catch words are the slogans of that day in Dublin in the middle of October was that it's not the people. It's not the people who are in power that matters. It is the people. It is the power in the people. And it's certainly the power in the people when they act in solidarity. And I really think, Minister, there's got to be serious attention paid to what I believe will be a very large demonstration this day next week. There's things obviously that should have been done in the context of, and are going to be done in the context of this legislation. The whole PPS numbers, I raised that the first time last January, and it has come up. Several times over the months. The 900,000 that has been talked about today, of the number of these packs that have been sent back. I asked a parliamentary question, and the usual kind of non-reply I received, that they couldn't distinguish between the ones that were sent back with the things like, I don't want to be a customer, not filled in, with all sorts of slogans on them. They were not segregated from the others. So it's impossible to know how many of the 900,000 that were sent back really were sent back as genuine returns in relation to Irish Water. And I think it's misleading to trot out that number when it's perfectly possible to find out just exactly how many did return them in a way that government would regard as legitimate. At this point, we're going to be going through another bill when it comes to January. I believe we're going to have pre-legislative scrutiny. This issue will run and run because it's far more than about Irish Water. Thank you.